Easy, fun, nails it every time. These are just a few of the things that clients say about my next guest. Hey everybody, welcome back to Second Cup. I'm your host, Tim Heller. Our fun and easy guest who nails it every time for this episode is Kelley Buttrick. Kelley is a voice actor and entrepreneur based out of Georgia who has voiced projects for Disney, Yamaha, Amazon, L'Oreal, Michelin, and so many more household names. Outside of voice acting, Kelley wears a ton of different hats, which you'll just have to wait and listen to in this episode. So it's time to top off your beverage, get comfy, and enjoy this episode of Second Cup with my friend Kelley Buttrick. Well, Kelley Buttrick, thank you so much for joining me this morning. I know we both have wild schedules and wild lives, so I'm just grateful to have you for 40 minutes, 50 minutes here.
I am honored and so excited to be here. I was really excited when Alessandra made the introduction, and to be on the same what do you call it, placket or playlist, whatever, as people like Alessandra and Lloyd George. He was really interesting. I didn't know him at all, but you had suggested in particular that I listen to that one. And I found both of them to be incredibly enlightening. And of course, Heidi Rue, she's one of my dear friends. You've had a lot of my good friends on here. Eli Harris. I mean, great
Oh, I didn't
people.
know that you know Eli.
So I'm honored.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've actually, Eli and I had a great conversation talking about marketing as a voice talent. He's such a great guy.
I love my phone calls with him because I think he has such a different perspective than so many people that I normally talk to about voiceover and marketing and sharing and privacy and all of it. And I just so admire him in so many different ways. But he's just a good egg. He's just such a great guy.
He's a very good egg. And that was our conversation as well, as, what's oversharing, what's, letting people know you. And of course, we have to honor his service to our country.
Yeah, absolutely. And we can start with voiceover, right? We're already on that. So let's talk a little bit about...
Let's not let it turn off the non-voiceover people.
Yes, exactly. So non-voiceover people listening to this, we're going to talk a lot more about some non-voiceover
other stuff.
And what it's like. Yeah, you'll find out in a little bit. We have a lot to talk about in a short amount of time.
Yes.
And so you've had several different, I don't know, several different lives, I'll say, in several different careers, or now you have all of them in one sphere. Can you tell us a little bit about your background in journalism and marketing and PR and all of these amazing things, and then how you found your way into the voiceover world?
Partway through my second cup.
Nope, you're good. This is my third cup this morning.
I was doing voiceover before I knew voiceover was a thing, and that's kind of an awkward confession. But I'll give you the Cliff Notes version. I went to Auburn. I had a great time. I discovered boys and beer and just, it was awesome. And freedom, holy cow, and went a little crazy. And the one thing that my divorced parents agreed on was that they were done paying for college after my freshman year. So I had to come back to the thriving metropolis of Greensboro, Georgia, where the social mecca was the local Bilo. They had great donuts. I'm supposed to make this a Cliff Notes. Sorry.
No, you can go in depth as you please. What is Bilo?
Bilo is a grocery store. It is no longer it's no longer a grocery store, but it was the Bilo is where everybody went, because at the time, for those of you familiar with the Greensboro, Lake Oconee area, the big grocery store is Publix now. But back then, there wasn't even the Ingalls. I was here when they built the Ingalls. Funny story for another day, but Bilo was the best, and it was the only, so that's where you saw everybody. And then while I was here, I was trying to work off the incredible debt I had gotten myself into because I went ahead and took one of those college credit cards, that they promise you the moon. Yeah, I really screwed up. 18 to 20, I really screwed up my life. So I was in Greensboro, Georgia. I worked 3 jobs. I waited tables at what was then Port Armor. I was a security guard in my parents' neighborhood. I mean, me, you want to come rob them? Hey, come on, let's go. The green polyester outfit, the whole bit. And then I was working as an activities director at a local RV resort, where, by the way, I just stored my RV. I was working as an activities director, and I would hire DJs from the local station to come and DJ our parties because I was the activities director. And got to know the owner of the station, who offered me a job on weekends, 12 to
Sweet.
6 in the morning. It was so fun. And Chip Linus, and gosh, it is hard for me to talk about him without getting emotional because they don't come any better. His
Mm.
love of the industry of radio is so contagious and genuine and true. And his just love of people. He's just a kind, kind man. And so he ended up giving me the morning show, not because I had any great talent, but because I lived here and could turn the station on because he lived up closer to Athens. Um, and he is the one who encouraged me to go back to school. And he encouraged me to major in journalism and go to UGA. And so he switched my schedule around. So I was working mornings and I could turn on the station. That's before they went 24 hours. And it was in the basement of an insurance company. My mom, this funny little side, when I started working there, my mom would hire the local police, whoever was on, to meet me at the door because she was paranoid that something would happen when I
Oh,
walked out of the
Mom.
basement of this building at night. Anyway, Chip encouraged me to go to UGA. I got in, majored in journalism, worked at a television station. My husband was in the military, Air Force, and got stationed in Tucson. At the time, we were just dating. And when I went to go live in Sin with him and later marry him, it's very difficult as a military wife to find a job
Hmm.
because they know you're only going to be there for a couple of years. So I went to a radio station and got a job as the promotions director, which was a good combination of my journalism PR background and on air background. Loved it. And when I left, the production director gave me a VO demo. And I was like, okay, what's this? And it was little clips of different commercials that they would just grab me from my desk and be like, hey, Kelley, come in, so and so agency is here. And they'd direct me through reading it. And I'd read the script and then go back to my job as a promotions director. And I had no idea that it was something you could do for a living until that moment. It
Wow.
was, and then I just started doing it on the side of various marketing jobs that I did, just word of mouth. And then I guess when the girls were in school is when I went ahead and got some coaching by Paul Armbruster. Bless him. He is no longer with us, and went from there.
Wow. I mean, I love that because nowadays it's people are specifically getting into just want to be a voice actor, not even
Yep.
an actor or anything else. It is like I want to be a voice actor specifically, and it's I was talking to my wife the other day and saying, sometimes I feel like I've been navigating like a little bit of like a rough patch emotionally, mentally, and just trying to like wade through the weeds a little bit and figure out like how can I like tweak my mindset or what do I need to do to like get back to feeling like myself again and feeling creative again when
Mm,
on paper everything looks like it's like, oh, he's crushing it. And
right.
it's like and it's it's just that weird
I
area
do
there.
know.
And I was like, oh, Jess, I just feel like sometimes I got into voiceover like a little too late, or like a little too early, where like it's at this weird time of like, or I got in just in time, maybe before everything went remote and before I was still going into the studios in New York and like had like 2 years of doing that way. But I think it's so cool that you found your way into it by accident. I feel like some of the people that, or so many of the people that have the most fruitful careers fell into it on accident. And
Yeah,
it's
it really was accidental, and I do have a background in theater. That I have a double minor in theater. That much I did accomplish when I was at Auburn. Um, and by the way, that is a big family secret. Nobody in my family, other than my mother who went to Auburn, likes me to admit that I started at Auburn. But shh. So anybody watching and listening, there goes. Shh. And you talk about struggling to find yourself. And I know the word pivot was used when you and I were
hmm
communicating, and I get it. I'll admit it, I'm 52 years old, and I have had to pivot. I've had those moments when you just said that, it resonated so deeply with me because Tim, I have had those moments. I just went
Hmm.
through one of those moments where it's like, okay, well, what do I do now? And everything looks great. This is my highlight reel, wow. But I don't feel like me. I don't, what do I do? And now that my kids are technically adults and we moved and just things, everything, our industry has changed dramatically
Hmm.
since I've been in it. And I do struggle with that and pivot with that. And I think that that is something that is common among people who, I don't mean this to sound braggy, but people who think creatively, people who don't have a linear way of thinking. And we tend to spiral out and spiral in our heads. Would you
Mm.
agree?
Oh, 100%. I think it's that we use the word spiraling in our household on a regular basis. And it's just to kind of describe it, even if it's a positive thing. You book a job
Yeah.
or you get a cool, like I've been getting, again, part of the like the on paper thing of like, oh, it looks like he's doing all right, is like I'm getting a lot of these auditions for projects that I have dreamed of getting in for.
That's so
And
awesome.
it's I'll spiral on that. And it's like, oh my
Please
God, if
do.
I get this, then I could be going out to LA more often.
Yeah.
I could be doing X, Y, and Z. We could save for this. We can do all of that, those things. Or it could be that it's just like, um, I don't know. I mean, the negative spiraling, I feel like is pretty
Mhm.
self-explanatory. It's like one small thing can trigger me to feel like shit for a week.
Yeah.
Cause it's just like, oh, wow, my pants don't fit like they used to. Oh, okay. Well, it's because I'm fat. Well, why am I fat? Well, I stopped drinking. And so there's no excuse. My back is fixed. So there's no excuse for that. And it's just that downward spiral that, climbing out of. But
Yeah. And
yeah.
I just think that the life of somebody, as I'm sure many of your listeners, being the nature of your podcast, think about is just that our brains don't operate linearly. So it's not like we can justify, almost like, I don't know about you, but I sucked at, what was that one? Was it not geometry? Was geometry the one we had to use theorems and
Oh,
proof and this, that, and the other? Which
yeah,
one is
that or
that?
trig. I think it may have been geometry. I was like,
I
write
sucked
it.
at it
Yeah.
because I can't do that. I can't make an assumption and then justify it. I can't look at that highlight reel that what's on paper is everything
Mm,
is great and then go, well, I got this, so I should be fine. And I'm doing this and I'm doing great because I don't think like that.
yeah.
I think in and out, just like you described, that kind of spiral. And it's not that I have extreme highs and lows. I'll be honest, I do suffer from depression, but or major depressive disorder is the technical thing, but
Hmm.
I don't suffer from major highs and lows. But I get in my own head way too much.
Yeah. How have you navigated that? Because that's something that's, it's in theater school, they tell you like, oh, like so many people let the fear of success get in the way of their
Hmm.
careers. And I never really got that. I never really understood that until more recently of like, oh, okay, cool. Like I'm getting to places where I want to be and that I've worked really hard to get to. And then I immediately jump into this like, oh, but you don't deserve that. When's the other shoe going to drop? Is like, it's that place of fear. How do you
Yep.
navigate through that in a career as full and vibrant as yours has been?
I wish I had the answer to that because I'd be a bazillionaire.
and
Um, I
and I'm
think,
not looking for one answer even too. It could be like in this period of my life, it ended up being like we got a dog and that helped. That was a band-aid or I just anything.
well, I believe dogs are band-aids for everything.
Yeah.
Um, but it really depends on the situation and where your head is. So for me, most recently, I just had a bunch of things like life-changing moments all fall on me about 1.5, 2 years ago. Everything just, there was a move. There was, I was just coming out of COVID. There were things going on with my family. It was just, there was so much happening between my kids and my parents. And just, I had to let put one of my dogs down.
Hmm.
So there was so much going on. And I just felt like I was walking around with, the way I described it, to my psychologist was like, I have an anvil on my chest I cannot get off. I mean, it was like a physical weight. And I would try different strategies that had worked for me other times. Like where, so I write down at least three things I'm grateful for every day. I do in my day planner. And, it sounds cheesy. I get it, but it works for me. That wasn't working for me. The only time I was feeling, I don't know, like it was lifted was when I was outside walking the dog or kayaking, just being outdoors. And I've always loved being outdoors, but that seemed to make it better. And then it was like, okay, well, I can't live my life outside as much as I'd like to. I mean, my God, we make our living in these teeny little
In these padded
boxes,
rooms. Yeah.
in our basement. But and when I say we, I'm talking about in general. So I got chemical help. And it was really hard for me because I am not a take a pill kind of person. I'm just not. And I fought it tooth and nail, fought it. I tried everything else I could do to get out of this deep, just darkness. A friend of mine calls it dancing with the black dog. I had to get out of that dance. And so, thank God for modern pharmaceuticals. I feel so much more like me. And there's someone in my family who also suffers from severe depression. And he refuses to take medication because he said it's going to change him. And I feel just the opposite. I feel like this medication has made me feel so much more like myself than I have felt in years.
That's fantastic, Kelley.
How's that for raw and vulnerable, Tim?
Yeah, hey, and that's our show, folks. No, I love that, and thank you for sharing that part of your life too, because I think it's important for people to hear, as has been shown by the past 40 something episodes of this little baby show. Is Marco Camarota
Oh,
is
yes.
a close friend of mine, and I was talking with him. We talk on like a couple times a week, and before he was starting Lexapro, he was really, really nervous about it. And his cyclical thinking was in really, I hope I'm not hurting his feelings by sharing his story or speaking for him, but he's talked about it online before too. But it's, it's a scary thing because it is an unknown. And when you're in that cyclical thinking, and I can speak for myself in that, it's really, really hard to dig yourself out. And so to think that there is some miracle pill that does that, and it's not just like an on and off switch, but it's an important part of living day-to-day life for so many people.
It is. And I was talked into it because, it doesn't mean it's forever. It's just for right now.
Yes.
And so that's how I got through it. And hearing from other people who have taken medication meant the world, which is why I brought it up since the topic came up. But that's why I talk about it, is because it needs to be normalized.
Yep. And
Marco,
more
oh my goodness, I have never spoken with him in person. We've chatted a bit on LinkedIn, but I love his LinkedIn feed. He is just so fun to watch and hear. He's so fun to watch and hear because he can sing. He is funny. He's great. I enjoy him very much.
I do too. He's a special person. Have you watched any of his YouTube channel?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
I love him.
My brother was writing some titles and captions for him for a while. And so I'd come out of the studio. My brother would be in the kitchen playing his stuff. I'm like, oh, that sounds like Marco. He's like, yeah, it's because it is. I'm like, oh, lovely. Just surrounded by all the people I love.
Speaking of your brother.
Yes.
Let me, I am a journalist. So I got to turn some questions around. Sorry.
Let's do it.
It's in my blood. Once a journalist, always a journalist. But one thing I found really interesting in our pre-talk, a month ago or whatever, you are in business with your brother, at which I love my brother, don't get me wrong, but we would kill each other. You're in business with your brother and you guys do creative consulting. And don't take this the wrong way, but that is a really vague.
Oh, I know. It's vague.
Yeah, it's
on
a
purpose.
Really vague, open-ended description. It's like, okay. So, and I've thought about that. And again, being a journalist, I like specifics. I like details. What the heck is creative consulting? What is
That's a
that?
great
And how do
question.
you and your brother not kill each other?
Yeah, so two great questions. First one is harder to answer than the second. It's so brother and I don't kill each other because we just, I don't know, we had been really fortunate, grew up in a really close knit family, painfully Midwestern. And yeah,
Me
we've just
too.
always gotten along. And I think that we're both sober too. So um, I, I think a lot of communication has been fine tuned because of that. And when he went through the program that he's gone through, um, our whole family learned a lot and about communicating, setting boundaries, all of that stuff. I'm still terrible at setting boundaries, but
But you're working on it.
I'm working on it. I know how to talk about it. I can give great advice on it. But and we just genuinely we just love each other, and I think we both admire each other. I really admire him and his talent for writing that he has. His gift with words um, is really unparalleled. And I read a lot of copy every day. I read a lot of bad copy every day, and I read a
Yes.
decent amount of good copy as well. And he's an incredible writer. And so I want to. We've always talked about how fun it would be when he first started getting into copywriting for some big ad agencies in Chicago and around the country, how fun it would be for us to be able to work on a project. And then it turned into like, oh, it'd be really cool to start a business together. Um, and as you know, so he ended up here in Austin on a motorcycle trip around the country, and it ended up being at the right time. I had a client reach out who was like, hey, um, I love the VO work you've done for me in the past. Could we get you to do some video work as well? I know you like make fun videos online. I was like, okay, yeah, I could figure that out. And it was like, uh, helped him produce a course. So I did that. And then that turned into, hey, I've got a buddy who's got a startup in Dallas. Can you help them with some videos? And then those videos turned into, we actually need a whole messaging playbook and a brand identity. And I was like, and they said,
Whoa.
can you do that? And I was like, um, I can only do it if my brother helps out with this. And he's on a 10-day silent meditation retreat. So just give me a week until he gets back and I'll give you an answer. And I'm texting him like, hey, Kevin, I know you're not going to see this for another week, but like you need to get home as fast as you can. And I have a gig for us. And so it's just turned into that. And it's really, I call it creative consulting right now, or creative marketing consulting, because it's what we do is we go into businesses that are already established or in a startup phase, like right before Series A, shortly after. And then our other client is a company that's been in business for like 10 years. Um,
Okay.
and they just need a refresh on their marketing. It's dry, it's plain, it's not connecting to people. And so what we do is we go in and take a look at their website, take a look at the existing content that they have, if they do have any, and kind of bring the human element to it. And we do that by talking, like investing a lot of time in the team. And so there's a whole process ahead of time of, it's not just like, oh, we're going to show up and make a video because you say you want a video made. It's like, okay, well, we need to actually make sure that what you need is what we offer. And if you're going to be able to invest the time and money into, getting what the result that you want, and which is what we do. And so we go in and we talk to people, try to bring that human element to all of their messaging. And so it just connects more with people. It's trying to elicit that emotional response that all the brands that we love the most and see the most do so well. And so it's a combination of his experience, my experience, and knowing when to say when, and saying like, no, we're not going to manage social media. Like what we do is we help bring your ideas to life. We can show you how to make the content. We can kind of lead the horse to water, but you can't make it drink.
That's why you are creative consultants and not creative executors, right?
Yes, exact. Yes.
Okay, I get it.
Yes.
I get it now. I get it now. Okay.
We execute on what we know that we can do well and in a
Mm-hmm.
timely fashion. And then everything else we say, hey, we've got a great network of people that we know that can do that a lot better. So it's another lesson in boundaries, but
Yes.
it's been fun.
And I think and I don't necessarily think this is restricted to women, so don't take this the wrong way. But again, raised in a Midwestern family, you say yes, we're people pleasers,
Oh,
Yeah. Yeah, we do that. Sure, we can do that. Absolutely. And then
mm-hmm.
we turn around and we're like, "Oh my gosh. and you've just taken on too much. So there
Yes.
is power and in the word no, but with power, what is it? What are the, I don't
With
know,
great power comes
characters?
great responsibility.
Yes, yes. So with great power comes great responsibility. And I think people sometimes forget that that's responsibility to yourself as well.
Yes. And
Responsibility for
looking
your
at
own well-being.
the pile of work that you've created for yourself and taking responsibility for that as well,
Yeah.
and saying there is nobody else to blame for the situation I'm in except for myself. And switching that has helped. And
Hmm.
it's yeah, it's just interesting. The people pleasing side is something that I never really was aware of until I lived in New York and started like going to therapy on a regular basis and realizing like, oh, I'm saying yes to all these things not because necessarily I even want to do it. It's just because I want them to feel okay, and I don't want them to feel disappointed or put out. But now it's at the point where I'm like, okay, cool. Like voiceover is cooking, audiobooks are cooking, uh, podcast is cooking. I can't cook anymore. I have to say no. I can't be on call for everybody. I have to just be able to say like, nope, this is not something I can do. Thank you though. Please
It's
don't
funny
hate
that
me.
comes
Please
up
don't be upset.
today. Yeah, exactly. Please don't hate me. It's funny that comes up today because I just sent an email back, responded to an email from one of my oldest clients, voiceover clients, when I started out. And I hadn't heard from him, gosh, in years. And he reached out to me about something, and I was like, yeah, I can do it for you. Just, get me the script, whatever. Such a great guy. He's a private investigator. Very, I would love to say
Cool.
well known, but by nature of what he does, he's not, but he works with some very well known people. So he says, I went to your website and wow, he said, you've come so far and I love it. And you obviously know marketing and, what would it cost to have you come and, take over my marketing and website and do advertising? And as much as I wanted to say yes, because as a person, I really love him and feel obligated for the faith he put into me when I first started. It was really difficult, but I just emailed him back this morning and just said, "Hey, Tom, really appreciate the confidence, appreciate the compliments. Um, I'm happy to get on a Zoom call with you or go to drink, whatever, and we
Mm-hmm.
will brainstorm till the cows come home. And then I will put you in touch with people who can do what you want to do
Yep.
because I can't. I just said, I've got my voiceover business. I've got these two other kind of businesses that I'm dabbling in. I just can't. I cannot take on any. And I mean, I'm an empty nester now. I'm ready to travel and do stuff that I haven't been
Yeah.
able to do because I've been momming and working.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and I think also for other people pleasers out there, I think saying no becomes easier if you think of coming at it from a solution
Yes.
mindset and saying, okay, I can't, but I can help like you did. Just I can point you in the right direction. And
Right.
it's
And it's kind of like that yes and
yep.
people need to start no but.
Yes. So you mentioned your other two side businesses. I want to dig into this because I think Tom is spot on with how great your website looks and
Oh,
how
that's very kind. It's
organized
not
it
me.
is. And Heidi Rue has the same thing where she is a multi-passionate, multi-hyphenate human being. And I look to both of you as of late to be like, how do I make my site work? What am I doing? And how do I do all these things that I've gotten myself into? But with you've got we've got kbvoiceovers.com, kbcreatescontent.com, and thinkoutsideCreative.com. kbvoiceovers.com, we know what that is. Tell us about KB Creates Content and Think Outside Creative, because watching your videos, looking at the blogs that you write, it's wild to think that you have time to do all of this and do it well. It's like
Oh,
doing
that's so
like
kind.
throwing pasta at the wall is one thing, but like doing it really well and like making it stick every time that's really impressive.
No, it just honestly, it feeds the squirrel mentality that I live with. I have to break into a side thing though, since we're talking about Heidi. I have to tell you how I actually met her in person.
Please do.
Um, so her husband, Mike Stout, he and I for many years were put together as like VO husband and wife.
Mm-hmm.
Great guy. And I knew that Heidi was running in this big race in Atlanta because we had been friends on social media. She was running this big race in Atlanta called the Hot Chocolate, and it was the 5K and 10K. I was doing the 10K with some friends. Um, and so you're running with a bazillion other people through downtown Atlanta. And I recognized Heidi. And I was so excited. And so we're both really nasty. Even though it's winter, we're sweating. It's early in the morning. We got the bags under our eyes. Sorry, Heidi. But Heidi always looks fabulous. And I'm like taking a selfie going, oh my God, it's so great to meet you. And so we just kind of ran together for a little bit. And after that, I mean, I knew I loved her online, but then to actually meet her, I love her so much. As far as the side businesses, Think Outside Creative is not necessarily a business. It was set up to potentially be a business. When I was thinking about offering marketing services or classes, I hadn't quite fleshed it out yet, to other creatives that are not represented. So set designers or boom operators, just people who aren't represented that need to promote themselves, because that's how I built my business. I built my business on the pillars of the experience I gained in PR and marketing. So I came up with Think Outside Creative, thinking eventually I'm going to do that. Well, my friend Liz DeNesnera, who is an amazing voice talent, has this newsletter that I love, and it's called Happy Tuesday from Liz. And it's just a picture, usually of the same thing. She lives in a beautiful area of northern New York. And it's a picture of a mountain or a lake that she looks at every day. And it just says Happy Tuesday from Liz. And I love it. I loved that concept. So I called her and said, hey, would you be okay if I sent out a monthly newsletter called Think Outside Thursday? Because I love, at the time I was running, I don't anymore, but I would take pictures while I was running. That's kind of how I motivated myself to keep going, as I just knew there'd be a great picture around the corner. Because when you're punishing your body like that, you got to find motivation. Anyway,
it's the little moments.
I started sending out, with her permission, I started sending out Think Outside Thursday. And it's a picture of something I've taken outside, a quote about nature, and then usually a question, asking them something and describing the picture, which is usually just taken as I'm walking by on my phone. But the whole purpose of it is to encourage people to get outdoors, to think outside. I want other people to get as much from the outdoors as I do, because I have found it to be, as I mentioned earlier, such an incredibly calming, motivating place to be, whether it's walking out in your front yard in bare feet, or going on a hike, or camping, or even driving with the windows open, or in my case, in the Jeep with the top down. So I started that, and then my former intern, now social media fabulous Aya Maruyama, Aya talked me into expanding it. And so now, I guess every quarter I do one called Think Outside Encounters, which is it's a video that is actually practical, that you go out and do. Like, I think the last one was finding hearts in nature, just to go out there, do it, find hearts, and where to look. And I've done how to make a terrarium, just little things, again, that encourage people to go outside. So it has nothing to do with voiceover.
Yeah.
And I cannot tell you, Tim, how many responses I get from my clients that I send it to, who are like, oh my gosh, yours is the only one I read, because it's not selling. I don't talk about myself other than, I almost fell out of my kayak taking a picture, whatever. But it's not about voiceover. It's about sharing a love of the outdoors and encouraging people to enjoy the benefits of being out there.
I love that. Yeah, I mean, it being outside has been another part of circling back to navigating the spiraling and stuff like that.
Yep.
I feel like I have gone full suburban dad mode. We booked a job last year that allowed us to like redo our backyard in our house so that it wasn't a swamp anymore, and like had flowers
Nice.
and grass and stuff like that. And we put a lot of work into that, and just having that space alone is like, oh, I can go outside and actually enjoy this like serene space. And then now that I'm like in here all day and I have to kind of stay close by to the house, we my brother and I decided to start doing disc golf again. And I feel like going
Fun.
out in like my bucket hat and like I look like a total dad. And we bring our dog and he's got his own disc. But even just that
Oh,
like 30
fun.
minutes of playing 9 holes of disc golf, when I'm really struggling with something, if I can go out and just suck at playing disc golf, but it's like also going on a hike and smelling the juniper and all of the oak trees and everything that's around, it really, really clears your head.
Well, if you ever come to Atlanta, I'm going to need to introduce you to Jill Perry and her husband because he is a big disc golfer. And
Oh, I'm sure he could
when we
teach me a
can,
thing
we sometimes get
three.
together and she and I will go and enjoy some good wine, some cheese, and then he goes off and plays disc golf
It's
at a park.
fun. It's an
Yeah,
easy sport that's
I've
not
never
going to
tried
wreck
it.
your body. It's really fun even if you're really terrible at it.
I'll have to try that. The other two businesses I do, so one is called KB Creates Content, and the other is Personality Hangups. And I have not created personalityhangups.com, my wonderful web guys, and please let me shout them out. They are fabulous.
Yeah.
So Patrick Jebber with Monsters, I met him on Twitter years ago when I was doing a big marketing effort called KB for Jeep. Met him on Twitter. He had reposted something, and I hand wrote a thank you note for reposting something that I had done, or an article. I think it was Adweek had written about me, and they had reposted that. So I wrote a handwritten thank you note that just said, "Hey, thank you. That was really kind. I don't even know you. That was really sweet of you to do that." They had me on their podcast. I just loved meeting he and his partner, and I just got a really good vibe from them. And I believe in going with your gut. And I said, "Hey, can you take over my website?" They've done 2 of my websites, through the years. But anyway, I have a trade with them to do personality hangups, but I just haven't made the time to do it. But personality hangups are really my art therapy when I can't be outside.
Mm.
I take old stuff, like, for example, my ISDN box that cost me $5,000, which is now completely nothing but a big, giant, ugly paperweight.
Uh-huh.
I took it apart and I just, and forgive me for cussing, but I just make shit. And that's what say to my husband. I'm like, "I'm going to go make shit. Leave me alone for a little bit."
Yep.
And I make shit that dangs from your rearview mirror, dangles from your rearview mirror. I make shit that hangs from trees. I go to flea markets and estate sales and thrift stores. I totally scored in New York with my daughter with some absolutely beautiful vintage chandelier parts, the
Oh,
crystals.
yeah.
So I will make, and they all have names. Driven is the rear view mirror. I'm trying to think. Homey is the stuff that hangs in your house. I just bought a bunch of tennis rackets. I'm just dying to do something fun with. Um, they're old. Let's see what else. Oh, personality rooted are things that you stick in plants. Personality hangups rooted. Personality hangups sunny. Those are the ones that hang in your window. That's what those chandelier parts are going for. What else? Oh, loyal. No, possum. PAW. Possum. Those are like bling for your dog's leash. Like,
I
some women
love
have
it.
it on their purses. I just, it is, I, again, I think it's that spiral thing. I get an idea and I get freaking obsessed with it. And I just think about it and think about it and I plan on it and I do it. And the process of ripping something apart, pulling it back together again in a totally different way, like Frankenstein,
Yeah.
seeing that vision come to life, that is therapy for me. I love it. It's so much fun. And I haven't figured out how to sell them yet. I did one like craft show. And bookmarks. Those are the ones that sold like crazy. So I'm working on that. And then the KB creates content. So KB for Jeep, which I mentioned earlier.
Yeah, I want to
Uh,
talk about this because this is wild.
it was wild, totally wild. And we don't have enough time to totally go into
Right.
it. But basically, I decided that I wanted to do something marketing out of the box, something that no voice talent had ever done. I was sick of waiting on brands to notice me. So I decided, what brand do I really love and what am I going to do? I chose Jeep. I've loved it ever since I was a kid. And I created a full scale marketing campaign targeting them. Just not waiting to get an audition, not
Yeah.
waiting to, there's people thought that they had paid me to do that. And I was creating this content, and some of the content I worked with other people to create. My friend Matt Chastain helped me with the first ones. And I was creating all this content about why Jeep should use my voice. And I got to say, it was some pretty kick-ass content. I won 4 Telly Awards for that content. So I was
That's
creating
ridiculous that you weren't even paid to
content.
make.
No, I did it because I was trying to get work. And I was obsessed with it. Everything was through Jeep colored glasses. Every post, anything was through. Anytime people took pictures of me, I was wearing a Jeep shirt. I did a whole photo shoot with it. At one point in time, I owned 25% of Jeep's Twitter audience. 25%. And this was before really content creation became a thing. And one of Jeep's pillars is authenticity. And so my argument was, hey, who better to represent your brand as a voice talent than someone who authentically loves it? Because I believe authenticity resonates. It rings true with the consumer. And watching ever since KB for Jeep, by the way, they did not hire me for squat, which was so gut twisting.
Yeah.
But I also would have been a fool had that been my only goal, because I invested so much money and time and heart. What it did is it increased my income by more than 40%. And I made over $75,000 in free publicity in places that our clients read, like Adweek and Campaign US and PR Daily and Production Hub and all these places. So it definitely had really good end result, even though they didn't hire me. Anyway, going back on that, I had so much fun creating that content, telling that story, pitching myself. Getting the Telly Awards was validation. But after that, I was just so burnt out that I just kind of had to recover, rest and recover. Then my youngest daughter started representing brands, and she started talking about influencers. And by the way, I think influencers are great, but I also think that they have, at least for me, they've jacked up my BS radar. It's like you can tell when somebody, because they're not authentic.
Yeah.
They're being,
you can tell if it's something they actually use, or if they're just like, I'm just collecting a check.
Yeah. Or I just really wanted to try. This is so great, y'all. It's so great. Oh my God. Look at my eyes. Anyway, that's acting to me. Influencers are very much actors. So in talking with her, and she was partnering with brands, or is partnering with brands. She's very into body positivity. She was hired last summer by a big woman-owned bathing suit company and worked for them as a paid intern. It was great. But I thought, you know what? I'm going to try that. So I started pimping out my dog, JD, who is just as cute as can be. I'm sorry for all of you who think your dogs are the cutest ever. No, they do not hold a candle to JD. I'm just saying. But I started pimping out JD and myself, and we have been able to represent brands in a way that is authentic and create content that is authentic, because we being JD and me, we only do brands that resonate with us personally. And I haven't really started reaching out to brands as a content creator yet. I'm still kind of getting my feet wet. I'm as bold as I can be. This is one of those times, like you were talking about, where you're like, oh, do I really belong in these waters? Or am I going to drown if I go too far out? So I'm still working on that, putting together my demos and such for reels, I guess they're called then. So I'm doing that. And these two things kind of help my monkey brain not keep me up at night.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, what a incredible lesson in creating your, like, work begets work. And how do I get work if I have no experience? It's, well, you create it. And and you did it to the nth degree. And it really is, every time that I feel burnt out from creating videos or whatever it is for social media, I know that the second I start to do it again and stay consistent with it, a job pops up. And it's just kind of a necessary evil, but it also can be a really fun necessary evil if you make it fun. And that's how I'm
Yes.
going to get, we were talking before we started recording, and that's how I'm going to get a Rivian in the driveway is I've got this beautiful hat from Kelley Buttrick and this Rivian mug from Kelley Buttrick as well. Just welcoming that in and just stating just putting it out there. I want to do
Yeah,
this. And even if that thing doesn't happen, something else will that is supposed to happen.
absolutely. And
Um,
let me just do a shout out for you here, Tim. Hey, Rivian people, Tim and his wife live in Austin. These are your people. These are tech
We've got a
people.
dog. We're here. We're
Yes.
ready for it. I've already got the level 2 charger installed in my house for my little electric clown car. Let's go.
There you go, Rivian, because he will get rid of the clown car if you send him a Rivian. And he loves spending time outdoors, as does his wife, who
We love
also
road
works for a
tripping.
big outdoor
Mm-hmm.
activity brand. So come on, Rivian, go, go,
Let's
go.
make it happen.
Exactly. There you go.
Well, Kelley, thank you for taking all this time this morning. And I know you've got to run. I've got 4 short, quick fire questions. So whatever is top of
Oh,
mind
God, I
for
forgot
you.
about these.
Yes.
Crap.
Oh,
I meant to
well,
have these ahead of time. Okay.
nope.
Shoot.
I'm so
Okay.
glad that you forgot. Okay. Who inspires you right now?
Oh, who inspires me right now? I would have to say the awkward dog walker on Instagram.
Okay. Checking them out after this.
You guys follow her because she takes shelter dogs, and she lives in Canada, and she takes these incredible photographs of these dogs that show their personality, and she basically gets them adopted. And so
Wow.
I'm inspired by her. I'm inspired by how she takes her talent and creativity and love of dogs and does something so beautiful and good with it.
I love that. What's a piece of content you can't get enough of right now? It can be a podcast, can be a TV show, a book, movie.
Man, I guess I'm kind of on a theme here, but the doggist also
Okay.
on Instagram. And he lives in New York, and I am learning from him because I watch his videos on how he makes these dogs do these things, but he tells the stories of these dogs that he just runs across. And I love it. And it inspired me to start, I don't know, 2 weeks ago, I started this thing called Pups in Places, also on Instagram, that because it just mortifies my family. I follow people's dogs around all the time. Like if we're on vacation, like even in foreign countries, I'm like, hey, can I take a picture of your dog? I do it all the time. So now
I love
I
it.
kind of legitimized it
Yeah,
by making Pups in
it's for
Places.
work, right?
hmm
What's a nickname you had as a kid?
Oh, God. Okay, you're too young for this. But there was a thing called Garbage Pail Kids, and they were like riffs on Cabbage Patch Kids.
Okay.
And so this guy, Jeff, was it? Oh, I can't remember his last name. Jeff. So he gave me the nickname. I can't believe I'm saying this. They all had funky names and they were all like gross. So mine was Smelly Kelly Crud Bombs. And I made the mistake of telling my husband that when we were dating. He calls me that all the time. Sometimes he just calls
Smelly
me Crud
Kelly
Bombs.
Crud Bombs. I
Yeah.
think
So
Crud
you
Bombs
guys
is a
who
great stage name.
Crud Bombs, because it
Yeah.
was Kelly Carruthers was my name. So Smelly Kelly Crud Bombs. So those of you to get this, you've got to go look up Garbage Pail Kids and you'll get how absolutely brilliant Jeff was.
That's amazing. Way to go, Jeff. Last question, and then we'll cut you loose. You can
Okay.
only have pizza one last time. Where from
Oh
and
man.
what's on it? No dietary aftermath if you're allergic to anything.
Oh yeah. Where would I have? Oh my gosh, that's a no-brainer. That is Peppino's Pizza. They used to be in downtown Athens and they had $2 pitchers, great pizza. And Brian and I went on many dates there because that's all we really could afford. And then they moved to where we lived at the time in Oconee County, and we would go out of our way to get oh my God, Peppino's Pizza. It is still the best. And they put little flakes of pesto in it. Oh, I just hit myself. I'm so excited. God, now I'm like spitting, I think, because I'm salivating. Oh,
I
great.
think it's
Thanks,
time
Tim.
for
I'm gonna
pizza for
be
breakfast. Yep.
rumbling stomach in my 10 o'clock session. Great. Thank you for that. And
Well,
I'm
Kelley,
sorry
I
I
will.
talked your ear
No,
off. I did not
that's
mean to
why I
do that.
wanted you on the show. That's what you
But it's supposed to
come
be a
here to do.
discussion.
It's
Two
supposed to be
ways.
whatever it's going to be. The whole point of it is just to have really amazing people on and have some great conversations, which we did. And you told some wonderful stories, and I want to be able to promote the people that come on the show. So
Well,
We're
and I
doing
want to
it.
be able to promote you too, and I will be promoting this. And
Thank you.
I just feel like, I know this is cheesy, but I feel like even after our first pre-meeting, I
Yeah.
just feel like I've met a new friend.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
really do. I mean, I feel like, I can't wait to meet your wife. You guys are going to come down to Atlanta and she's going to join Jill and I for a glass of wine. And
Yep.
you and her husband are going to run off and play Frisbee golf
Yeah. In my Rivian that I pick up from the factory from Rivian that's down the road from you
in
guys.
Rutledge, which is
Yep.
down the road from me.
Yep.
Exactly.
It's
Yeah.
gonna be great.
After you tell them that they can hire me to do their off-road conditioning. I
Of
love to
course.
go
Of
off-road.
course.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, Kelley, thank you so much again for doing this and break a lip
Thank
in your
you.
session that you have in 3 minutes here.
Yeah. Thank you. Big hug. Big hug.
Yes. I'll
And a
talk to you
big
again
hug for your
soon.
dog too.
Yes. All right. Thanks,
Bye.
Kelley. Whew, thank you so much for listening to this episode of Second Cup with my friend Kelley Buttrick. To stay up to date with everything that Kelley has going on, and she has a lot going on, you can follow her on Instagram at KB Voiceovers, friend her on Facebook, Kelley Buttrick, connect with her on LinkedIn, Dad Kelley Buttrick, and you can also check out her website, kbvoiceovers.com. To stay up to date on her content creation and nature-based newsletter, you can go to kbcreatescontent.com and thinkoutsidecreative.com. As always, thank you to the Second Cup team, Alberth Bursey, Tara Seuss, Julia Shepard-Morgan, and Sarang Sharma. And a huge thank you to all of you for listening to this podcast and to all the guests who have reached out to be a part of the show. We are almost at 50 episodes in. Just a heads up, we're going to be taking a short break in production. I'm traveling a lot, work has been crazy, and we just need to reevaluate the show a little bit and figure out how to structure it to make sure it's a sustainable endeavor. If you haven't already, leave a comment on this episode or any of the previous ones, rate them, share them, like them, repost them. Any and all of these actions help us all out a ton. We'll be back after a short sabbatical with more incredible conversations with some really cool people. Toodaloo!